The janitor's hands could save a child's voice. Marcus folded his cleaning cloth in 3 precise creases, while the CEO's 8-year-old daughter sat silent in the corner, tears streaming down her face. Her mother paced the executive conference room, phone pressed to her ear, discussing tomorrow's $900 million IPO launch, while her child's world crumbled in complete silence. The speech therapist canceled again. The CEO whispered into her phone, "I don't know what else to try." Marcus had been invisible for 8 months, emptying trash cans, mopping floors, watching this brilliant woman slowly break as her daughter retreated deeper into isolation. The little girl's drawings covered the conference table, angry black scribbles where colorful flowers used to bloom. He shouldn't interfere. Janitors don't cross those lines. But his hands remembered another language. His certification lay hidden in his locker, expired but not forgotten. And somewhere in this sterile corporate tower, cameras were already recording what they thought would be his humiliation. The child's fidget spinner slowed to a stop. Her small fingers traced desperate patterns in the air. Broken signs, half-remembered gestures, fragments of a language no one here understood. Marcus stepped forward. His hands began to move. The CEO stopped mid-sentence. Her daughter looked up for the first time in weeks. By tomorrow morning, the internet would know his name. The board of directors would demand answers. And a cruel prank would become something else entirely. 3 people filmed him that night. Only one knew they were documenting a miracle. The group text had started 3 days earlier at 2:23 p.m. Brad from marketing. New janitor thinks he's hot shit. Time for reality check. Jennifer from HR. What do you mean? Brad. Blind date setup. Tell him some mystery executive wants dinner. Film the whole thing. The screenshots would later destroy careers. Digital evidence never lies. Marcus had been working third shift for 8 months, invisible to everyone except the security cameras that tracked his keycard. College degree locked in storage. ASL interpreter certification gathering dust while he fought for custody of his hearing-impaired son. The math was brutal but simple. Night cleaning meant day custody, health insurance, and steady pay. Pride was a luxury single fathers couldn't afford. But something about Marcus unsettled them. The way he moved through their world without asking permission. How he'd quietly fixed the broken conference room projector when IT couldn't figure it out. The careful way he straightened papers on desks, as if other people's work mattered. He acts like he belongs here, Brad had complained after Marcus politely corrected his ASL fingerspelling in the elevator. Maybe because he's a human being, Jennifer had replied. He's the help. There's a difference. The plan grew more elaborate each day. What started as a simple prank evolved into coordinated cruelty. Anonymous phone number, fake reservation, multiple camera angles. They'd turned humiliation into a production. Romano's at 7, read the text they sent Marcus. Table 12. I think you're someone special. He'd stared at the message for 10 minutes. His son was at his ex-wife's for the weekend. The apartment felt too quiet, too empty. Loneliness makes people desperate enough to believe in impossible things. Marcus almost deleted the text, almost stayed home with leftover pizza and his son's homework spread across the kitchen table, a school project about families where his boy had written, "My dad's hands tell stories in the air, but he cleans offices so I can hear better." Instead, he pressed his best shirt, checked his reflection in the bathroom mirror, wondered what kind of executive would notice a night janitor. At Romano's, the hostess seemed nervous. Table 12, she confirmed, consulting her chart twice. The gentleman specifically requested that table. The restaurant felt wrong. Too many people at the bar, phones positioned at odd angles. Marcus had learned to read rooms in foster care. Survival depended on recognizing when you were being set up. But hope is a dangerous thing. It makes you ignore warning signs. The table sat perfectly positioned for maximum visibility. Camera phones lined the bar like predators waiting for prey. Marcus checked his watch. 6:45 p.m. 2 minutes early. His mother had taught him that being on time showed respect, even when you suspected you were walking into a trap. A small coat hung over the chair across from him, child-sized, navy blue with cartoon patches. The reservation was set. The cameras were charged. The CEO had no idea. At 6:47 p.m., the first phone started recording. By 6:48, 3 different angles captured the same scene. A janitor waiting alone at table 12, straightening his collar, checking his phone, believing someone thought he was worth their time. The internet would later debate whether what happened next was justice or revenge, but in that moment, Marcus simply sat and waited, unaware that his life was about to change forever. The coat belonged to someone who couldn't speak, someone who desperately needed what his hands could offer. At 6:52 p.m., the CEO walked through the front door, her daughter's hand clutched tightly in hers, both of them stepping directly into the crosshairs of a plan designed to destroy a good man's dignity. The hearing aid charging station sat next to Marcus's ASL interpreter certification like a daily reminder of two different lives. Every morning at 6 a.m., Marcus would check his son's equipment first. Battery levels, moisture indicators, backup devices. The ritual of a father who'd learned that silence wasn't golden when your child needed to hear the world. Then came his own preparation. Instant coffee, yesterday's uniform, and 30 minutes of signing practice in the bathroom mirror. "Dad, why do your hands tell stories but you clean toilets?" The question had hit him 3 weeks ago over breakfast cereal. 8-year-old logic cutting straight through adult pretenses. Marcus had paused, spoon halfway to his mouth, watching his son's curious face in the morning light streaming through their small apartment window. Because sometimes, he'd sign slowly, "We do what we have to do so we can do what we want to do later." His son had nodded like that made perfect sense. Kids understood sacrifice better than adults gave them credit for. The certification renewal notice lay unopened on the kitchen counter. $400 he didn't have, 3 continuing education courses he couldn't afford, a profession that felt like a luxury when rent was due and his son needed new hearing aids every 2 years. Marcus finished his coffee and grabbed his keys. The interpreter certification would have to wait. Again, his son asked why Daddy cleans toilets when his hands tell stories. The supply closet held more than cleaning supplies. Behind the industrial disinfectant and microfiber cloths, Marcus kept a manila folder wrapped in plastic. Inside, his original ASL interpreter certification, dated 18 months ago, clinical supervisor evaluation forms, letters of recommendation from deaf community leaders, a life he'd set aside when custody battles required steady income and health insurance. The contrast was brutal. By day, he navigated parent-teacher conferences about his son's progress in mainstream classrooms. By night, he emptied trash cans in offices where executives made his yearly salary in monthly bonuses. And the cognitive dissonance would have broken someone with less practice at compartmentalizing survival. But Marcus had learned early that dignity wasn't about your job title. It was about showing up, doing the work, taking care of your responsibilities without making excuses. He'd practiced emotional regulation techniques in this same closet, preparing for family court hearings, deep breathing exercises taught in interpreter training, managing the stress of translating life-changing conversations. Those same skills served him now, staying calm while colleagues talked past him like furniture. 3 languages flowed through his mind as he worked: English, ASL, and the wordless communication of institutional maintenance. Each required precision. Each demanded respect for the people who depended on clear understanding. Last month, his son had brought home artwork from school. A crayon drawing of 2 figures, one large and one small, with elaborate hand gestures floating between them like butterflies. At the bottom, in careful 8-year-old handwriting, "My Dad's Magic Hands." Marcus had taped it to the inside of his locker where no one else would see. Nobody at the office knew he spoke 3 languages fluently. The calendar entry read, "Speech therapy canceled for the 4th time this month." Elena Chen stared at her daughter's appointment slot, now blocked out in red, while investor calls stacked up like dominoes behind it. The IPO roadshow demanded everything. Her time, her focus, her ability to pretend that $900 million mattered more than the 8-year-old who sat in her office corner, drawing angry black scribbles where flowers used to bloom. "Miss Chen, Goldman Sachs is holding online too. Tell them 5 minutes." But 5 minutes had become 20, then 40, then entire afternoons lost to due diligence while her daughter waited, silent, always silent now. The speech therapy cancellations weren't helping anyone. Dr. Martinez had been blunt. Consistency matters more than credentials. She needs daily practice, not weekly appointments. Elena's assistant knocked softly. The Morgan Stanley presentation moved to tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. sharp. Tomorrow. The same morning as Lily's school evaluation. The same morning the new ASL therapist was supposed to start. The same morning Elena had promised, again, to put her daughter first. Her phone buzzed with a text from her ex-husband. Lily's teacher says she's not participating in group activities, still withdrawing. What's the plan? What plan? Elena had tried everything. Private therapists, specialized schools, art therapy, music therapy, communication devices. Nothing worked. Her brilliant, beautiful daughter was disappearing into silence, one canceled appointment at a time. Lily looked up from her drawings, small hands forming frustrated gestures that Elena almost recognized. Almost. The gap between them widened daily. A mother who could negotiate billion-dollar deals but couldn't understand her own child's most basic needs. The $900 million IPO meant nothing if she lost her daughter. The art therapy portfolio told a story Elena was afraid to read. Dr. Kim spread Lily's drawings across the conference table like evidence in a case she didn't want to solve. 6 months of artwork documenting a child's emotional regression, bright rainbows fading to gray storms, smiling stick figures becoming angry scribbles, elaborate flower gardens withering into empty pages with single black lines. The deterioration is significant, Dr. Kim said gently. Lily's frustration levels are increasing as her communication attempts go unrecognized. Elena studied the progression. She could analyze market trends, predict consumer behavior, decode complex financial data. But her daughter's artwork might as well have been written in hieroglyphics. What do you recommend? Intensive family ASL immersion, both of you together learning her primary language. I don't have time for Miss Chen. Dr. Kim's voice carried the weight of 20 years treating families in crisis. Lily is trying to tell you something. Every drawing, every gesture, every moment of eye contact she gives you is communication. The question is whether you're going to learn to listen. Lily's latest drawing sat on top of the pile, 2 figures on opposite sides of a wide river. No bridge between them. The smaller figure's hands were raised, reaching across the water. The larger figure faced away, a rectangular shape covering her face like a phone screen. Elena's chest tightened. The metaphor was devastatingly clear, even to someone who couldn't read ASL. Her daughter was drowning in silence while her mother managed phone calls about stock valuations and market penetration. Professional success measured in millions. Personal failure measured in a child's tears making silent drops on a tablet screen. She'd tried everything, except trusting a stranger. The receipt timestamp would later prove everything. Romano's. Table 12, 6:47 p.m. Marcus arrived 2 minutes early, checking his reflection in the restaurant's front window. His best shirt, the one his ex-wife had bought him for job interviews, felt too tight around his collar. He'd practiced conversation starters during the drive over, wondering what kind of executive noticed a night janitor enough to ask him to dinner. The hostess seemed nervous, consulting her seating chart twice. Table 12, she confirmed, leading him through the dining room. Your companion specifically requested this location. The table sat in perfect view of the bar area where an unusual number of people held phones at odd angles. Marcus had learned to read situations in foster care. Survival depended on recognizing when you were walking into something dangerous. But hope made people ignore warning signs. A small navy coat draped over the chair across from him. Child-sized, with cartoon patches sewn onto the sleeves. The fabric still held the faint scent of strawberry shampoo and that particular sweetness that clung to kids' clothes. Marcus straightened his napkin and checked his phone. 6:47 p.m. exactly. His mother's voice echoed from childhood. Being on time shows respect for other people's lives. At the bar, someone whispered, "Is that him?" Camera phones shifted position like predators adjusting their aim. The CEO walked in. The cameras focused. He had no idea. Beat #09. Recognition shock 275-2. Elena Chen stopped 3 steps inside Romano's, her daughter's hand tight in hers. She'd been expecting a business dinner, some venture capitalist wanting to discuss post-IPO partnerships. Her assistant had been vague about the details. "Someone thinks you should meet," was all she'd said. Elena had brought Lily because the babysitter canceled, and tomorrow's presentation demanded her full attention tonight. Instead, she saw the janitor from her building sitting at table 12. Marcus looked up from his phone, and their eyes met across the restaurant. His face showed the same confusion she felt. 2 people realizing they'd been set up by someone with unclear motives. But Lily noticed him first. Her daughter's grip loosened. For the first time in weeks, Lily made direct eye contact with a stranger. Something about Marcus's presence shifted the energy in her small body. The constant fidgeting stopped. Her shoulders relaxed. "Mommy," Lily whispered, using her voice for the first time all day. "His hands are different." Elena followed her daughter's gaze. Marcus was unconsciously signing as he read the menu, fluid, precise movements that spoke of professional training. Not the awkward gestures most hearing people attempted, but the natural fluency of someone who thought in multiple languages. At the bar, phones recorded everything. Whispered commentary buzzed through the room like static electricity. CEO with the cleaning guy. "This is perfect. Are you getting this?" Neither of them noticed the phones recording everything. The text messages arrived like digital daggers. Marcus's phone buzzed first. "How's your hot date going?" Then another. "Check TikTok in 10 minutes. You're famous." Elena's phone exploded with notifications from her assistant, her investors, her board members. Screenshots of social media posts already going viral. Tech CEO's secret romance with building janitor. The cruelty revealed itself in real time. Brad from marketing stood at the bar, phone raised, grinning like he'd just won the lottery. Jennifer from HR sat 2 tables away, looking sick but still recording. "We should go," Elena said quietly, understanding flooding through her like ice water. But Lily had moved closer to Marcus, drawn by something Elena couldn't see. Her daughter was attempting to sign, broken, frustrated gestures that Marcus seemed to understand perfectly. "Wait," he said softly, his hands moving in response to Lily's attempts. Proper ASL flowing like water. Elena watched her daughter's face transform. For the first time in months, someone was answering back in her language. Not the stilted, awkward attempts Elena made, but real conversation. At the bar, Brad nudged his friends. "Are you getting this? CEO's kid too? This keeps getting better." The prank was working perfectly. Social media notifications chimed like slot machine jackpots. Comments poured in. "Diversity hire much? Gold digger alert. When keeping it real goes wrong." Marcus looked at Elena, then at Lily, then at the phones pointed at them like weapons. The prank was working perfectly, until he started signing. Marcus's hands moved before his mind could calculate the risks. Lily was signing distress, not the textbook version therapists taught, but raw emotional language that came from a child's desperate need to be understood. Her small fingers twisted in knots, forming broken words that meant scared and angry, and "why don't they see me?" Professional instinct kicked in. 18 months of interpreter training didn't disappear because you emptied trash cans for a living. Marcus shifted in his chair, angling his body toward Lily in the classical interpreter position, open, accessible, respectful of the language flowing between them. His response came in fluid ASL. "I see you. Your words are important." The effect was immediate. Lily's fidgeting stopped. Her eyes widened, not with surprise, but with relief. Someone had finally answered back in her native language. Elena watched her daughter's transformation with growing amazement. You actually understand her." "She's not speaking broken ASL," Marcus explained gently, his hands continuing to move in conversation with Lily. "She's creating emotional poetry. Most adults can't hear the difference." Around them, the restaurant buzz continued. Phones recorded what they thought was an awkward encounter between mismatched social classes. But at table 12, something else was happening entirely. Lily began to tell her story. Her hands described the frustration of being trapped in silence, while adults made decisions about her life. The loneliness of watching other children play games she couldn't join. The sadness of seeing her mother cry during phone calls about IPO presentations instead of paying attention to drawings that said, "I love you" in visual language. Marcus translated the complex emotional concepts Elena couldn't follow. Not the simplified baby talk most interpreters used with families, but respectful, complete interpretation that honored Lily's intelligence. "She says," Marcus began carefully, "that she draws angry pictures because she's not angry at the world. She's angry that the world won't learn her language." Elena's breath caught. 6 months of therapy sessions, and no one had asked Lily to explain her own artwork. He wasn't trying to impress anyone. He was just helping a kid. Lily smiled for the first time in 3 weeks. Not the polite, practiced smile she gave therapists and teachers, but genuine joy that started in her eyes and spread across her face like sunrise. Her hands moved faster now, telling Marcus about her favorite books, her drawings, her dreams of becoming an artist who painted stories in colors that made sounds. Elena watched her daughter come alive in ways she'd forgotten were possible. Lily's shoulders dropped from their defensive hunch. Her fidget spinner, usually spinning frantically, sat forgotten on the table. For the first time since the divorce, her child looked peaceful. "How are you doing this?" Elena whispered. Marcus kept his focus on Lily while he answered. "I'm listening to what she's actually saying instead of trying to fix what I think is wrong." The concept hit Elena like a physical blow. Every therapy session, every specialist consultation, every intervention had been about changing Lily's behavior. No one had simply asked what she wanted to communicate. Lily tugged Marcus's sleeve and signed something elaborate. He laughed, a genuine sound that made her glow with pride. "She wants to know if you understand story hands," Marcus translated. "She's invented her own form of ASL storytelling, where emotions have colors and characters live in the spaces between words." Elena felt tears building. Her daughter was a poet, and she'd been treating her like a problem to solve. Around them, the cruel commentary continued. Social media posts multiplied with hashtags like #WrongSideOfTown and #DiversityFail. But at table 12, a different story was unfolding. Lily was teaching Marcus her invented signs for complex feelings, the one that meant missing someone who's right next to you and the gesture for love that feels too big for hands to hold. His responses came in standard ASL, but modified with her creative additions, building a bridge between formal language and childhood innovation. For 8 years, no stranger had made her daughter smile. Elena's penthouse apartment had never felt so quiet. 2 hours after leaving Romano's, Lily sat cross-legged on the living room carpet, spreading her art therapy drawings in careful rows. Marcus knelt beside her, studying each piece with the attention most adults reserved for legal documents or financial reports. "She's been trying to tell you something important," he said softly, holding up a drawing from 2 months ago. In it, a small figure stood inside a glass box, while larger figures moved around outside, their mouths forming perfect circles of sound. Elena settled onto the floor beside them, her designer suit crumpling against the carpet. "I see it now. She feels trapped?" "Not trapped," Marcus corrected gently. "Isolated. There's a difference. Trapped means you can't get out. Isolated means no one's trying to get in." Lily pulled out her newest drawing, one Elena had never seen. It showed the same glass box, but now cracks spider-webbed across its surface. Small hands pressed against the glass from inside, and for the first time, hands pressed back from outside. "She drew this yesterday," Marcus realized, studying the careful crayon work. "After she met me." Elena's chest tightened. Her daughter had been documenting her own emotional breakthrough, one drawing at a time. The progression was clear now. Hopelessness to frustration to anger to possibility. Lily signed something complex, her hands moving with new confidence. Marcus smiled and responded in kind, their conversation flowing like music Elena couldn't quite hear but somehow felt. What did she say? That she's been saving her best stories for someone who could understand the endings. The drawings told a story her mother had never heard. The silent game started by accident. Lily had been explaining her invented signs when Elena's phone buzzed with another notification. More social media posts, more cruel commentary, more evidence that the internet had turned their private moment into public entertainment. But instead of checking her phone, Elena set it aside and focused on her daughter's hands. "Teach me," she said simply. What followed was 20 minutes of Elena attempting to mirror Lily's gestures while Marcus provided gentle corrections. Elena's corporate hands, trained for handshakes and presentations, struggled with the fluid storytelling Lily had developed. But for the first time in months, mother and daughter were learning the same language. Lily's laughter made no sound, but shook her entire body with joy. She was patient with Elena's mistakes, encouraging each small improvement with enthusiastic nods and corrective demonstrations. Marcus documented the lesson with his phone, but not for social media. These were memories worth preserving. Elena's face lighting up when she successfully signed her first complete emotional concept, Lily's pride in teaching her mother something meaningful, the moment when Elena realized her daughter had been fluent in expressing love all along. Online, the mockery continued spreading. Screenshots of the restaurant encounter gained momentum with each share. Comments poured in about gold diggers and inappropriate workplace dynamics. But in Elena's apartment, healing had begun. Timestamp photos would later show the progression. Elena's initial frustration at 8:47 p.m., her first successful sign at 9:15 p.m., and at 9:33 p.m., both mother and daughter laughing together as Elena attempted to sign "I love you," and accidentally signed "I love fish" instead. The gesture meant the same thing to both of them. Online, the mockery was spreading. At home, healing had begun. By Monday morning, the video had 47,000 views and climbing. Elena stared at her phone screen in the back of her town car, watching her professional reputation disintegrate in real time. The hashtag #CEO Jandergate was trending. Screenshots from Romano's filled her Twitter mentions. Investment analysts were already asking questions about leadership judgment and company culture. Her assistant's voice crackled through the car speakers. Goldman Sachs moved the IPO presentation to tomorrow at 10 a.m. They want to discuss recent social media developments before we go public. Tomorrow. 24 hours to save a $900 million launch. The analytics were devastating. Every major investor followed at least 3 people who had shared the video. Board members were receiving calls from concerned stakeholders. Her ex-husband had already texted, "Lily's school is asking questions about the internet thing. Handle this." But the cruelest part was the comments section. Hundreds of strangers dissecting her parenting, her judgment, her right to lead a company while raising a disabled child, as if loving Lily was somehow evidence of professional incompetence. Elena scrolled through her phone's photo gallery, finding the pictures Marcus had taken the night before. Lily's genuine smile, Elena's first successful sign, mother and daughter finally understanding each other. None of that mattered to the internet. The narrative was already written. Successful woman makes poor choices, faces consequences. Her daughter sat beside her in the back seat, practicing the signs Elena had learned, completely unaware that their moment of breakthrough was being weaponized against them. Monday morning, 50,000 views. Tuesday, IPO, $900 million at stake. Marcus found the smoking gun in his own employee file. 3 harassment complaints against Brad and his group filed over the past 6 months, all dismissed by Jennifer from HR as interpersonal conflict or misunderstandings about workplace hierarchy. The pattern was clear: systematic bullying disguised as corporate culture. The complaints painted a picture of coordinated cruelty. A Muslim custodian mocked for prayer times. A Latina security guard subjected to jokes about documentation. An older maintenance worker forced into early retirement after becoming the target of social media harassment. Marcus was just the latest victim in an established pattern. He photographed every document with timestamps, building a case file on his phone. California labor law was clear about hostile work environments. Federal ADA compliance required accessibility accommodations. The company's own diversity policies, posted in every break room, explicitly prohibited the behavior documented in these reports. But the most damaging evidence was the planning texts themselves. Brad's phone records would show premeditation. Jennifer's involvement violated her professional obligations as HR representative. The restaurant setup constituted conspiracy to commit harassment. Marcus's ASL interpreter certification lay in his hands, current through next year, not expired like he'd told Elena. He'd let it lapse briefly during the custody battle, then quietly renewed it using his employee education benefits, professional development that his tormentors assumed he was too stupid to pursue. The certification included specialized training in family therapy interpretation and childhood trauma communication, credentials that would validate every gentle technique he'd used with Lily. The evidence was damning. But would anyone listen to a janitor? The corporate auditorium held 400 people and 15,000 secrets. Elena stood behind the presentation podium at 9:58 a.m., watching investors file into seats while her phone displayed the viral video's latest count, 127,000 views and climbing. Goldman Sachs executives occupied the front row, their expressions carefully neutral. Board members clustered in the VIP section, whispering among themselves about damage control and contingency plans. The live stream counter showed 15,247 viewers online, financial journalists, competitor analysts, internet trolls waiting for her public destruction. Marcus sat in the back corner with the other building staff, invisible in his custodial uniform. Lily occupied the front row beside Elena's assistant, practicing the new signs Elena had taught her, unaware that her small movements were being broadcast to thousands of strangers. "Good morning," Elena began, her voice steady despite the chaos swirling around her professional life. "Welcome to Technova's IPO presentation. Today, we're not just launching a company, we're launching a conversation about who deserves to be heard." The scripted opening felt wrong in her mouth. She'd planned to address the social media incident after the financial projections, hoping to bury the controversy under impressive quarterly numbers. But Lily's presence in the front row changed everything. Her daughter's hands moved in the gentle signs Marcus had taught them both. Truth. Important. Now. Behind the cameras, Brad from marketing sat with his phone ready, expecting Elena's humiliation to provide the perfect finale to his viral masterpiece. Jennifer from HR studied her fingernails, avoiding eye contact with the stage. The presentation began. The internet was watching. The truth was coming. Before we discuss quarterly projections, Elena said, deviating from her prepared script, I need to address something more important than money. The auditorium quieted. Investors checked their phones, expecting damage control about the viral video. Instead, Elena nodded toward the back of the room. Marcus Chen, would you please join me on stage? Confusion rippled through the audience. Marcus hesitated, then walked down the center aisle while cameras tracked his movement. His custodial uniform seemed to amplify with each step, a visual reminder of the social hierarchy everyone assumed they understood. 3 nights ago, Elena continued, my daughter and I met this man at a restaurant. The internet thinks they witnessed a scandal. Instead, they documented a miracle. Marcus reached the stage, standing beside Elena with quiet dignity. Lily bounced in her front row seat, signing excited encouragement. Marcus isn't just our building's janitor, Elena said, pulling out her phone. Show them. The screen behind them filled with an image. Marcus's current ASL interpreter certification, issued by the Registry of Interpreters for the Deaf, licensed through 2026, specialized certifications in family therapy and childhood trauma communication. The auditorium erupted in whispers. Investors leaned forward. The live stream chat exploded with confused commentary. For 8 years, Elena's voice cracked, I couldn't communicate with my own daughter. Every therapist, every specialist, every expert I hired failed to reach her. Marcus succeeded in 20 minutes because he has something money can't buy. Professional expertise combined with genuine compassion. Marcus stepped forward, his hands beginning to move in fluid ASL. Lily stood up in the front row, her face radiant with pride. Tell them about the drawings. She signed to her mother. Tell them how you learned to see me. The janitor had credentials. The CEO had been blind. Elena's phone connected to the presentation system with a decisive click. The viral video everyone's discussing shows 30 seconds of a 3-hour evening. She announced, here's what really happened. The screen filled with Marcus's documentation, timestamps from his employee file showing 3 years of exemplary service reviews, his college transcripts, bachelor's degree in communications, magna cum laude, professional development courses completed using company education benefits that HR claimed janitors weren't eligible for. Then came the smoking gun evidence Marcus had gathered. Text message screenshots with timestamps appeared on screen. Brad's planning messages, the fake reservation confirmation, Jennifer's participation in the harassment scheme. The coordinated nature of the attack became undeniable under the auditorium lights. Every camera, Elena continued, her voice gaining strength. Every message, every lie, all documented. HR complaint records filled the screen next. 3 separate incidents involving the same group of employees. A pattern of workplace harassment targeting maintenance staff, security guards, and custodial workers, all dismissed or minimized by the same HR representative currently sitting in row 12. The live stream chat shifted from mockery to shock. Financial journalists began typing furiously. Board members sat forward in their chairs, realizing they were witnessing either corporate suicide or corporate courage. But the most damaging evidence came next, the company's own accessibility audit. Completed 6 months ago, a compliance report showing Technova had failed to provide adequate accommodations for hearing-impaired employees and their families. A legal liability worth millions in potential lawsuits. Marcus stepped closer to the microphone. The cruelest part, he said quietly, wasn't the humiliation. It was watching Lily's breakthrough moment turned into entertainment for people who've never tried to reach a child lost in silence. Lily stood in the front row, her hands moving in complex emotional signs that the live stream cameras captured perfectly. Every camera, every message, every lie, all documented. Lily walked onto the stage without permission. Her small steps echoed through the auditorium's sound system as she approached the microphone stand, her face determined in the way only 8-year-olds could manage when they'd made an important decision. Elena started to redirect her, but Marcus placed a gentle hand on Elena's arm. "Let her speak," he said. Lily's hands began to move. What followed was 3 minutes of the most eloquent testimony the corporate world had ever witnessed. Lily told her story in flowing ASL while Marcus provided simultaneous interpretation, his voice carrying her words to an audience of adults who'd never bothered to learn her language. She described the loneliness of being the only deaf child in rooms full of hearing people who spoke past her, around her, about her, but never to her. The frustration of watching adults make decisions about her life without asking what she wanted or needed. The fear that her mother's important work meant more than their relationship. The joy of finally finding someone who understood that silence wasn't emptiness. It was a different kind of fullness that most people were too impatient to explore. "My mama learned my hands' words," Lily signed, while Marcus's voice carried her message. "She tried so hard, but nobody taught her right. Marcus taught her right. Marcus taught her how to see me." The auditorium held its breath. 15,000 people watched a child explain forgiveness, love, and the difference between being helped and being heard. Lily's final statement hit like lightning. "The mean people made fun of Marcus helping me, but Marcus wasn't helping me. Marcus was listening to me. There's a big difference." She told her mother everything. The whole world listened. The termination announcements came with surgical precision. Elena's voice cut through the auditorium's stunned silence. "Effective immediately. Brad Morrison from marketing and Jennifer Walsh from human resources are terminated for cause, harassment, conspiracy, and violation of company anti-discrimination policies." Security guards materialized at the end of row 12. Brad's face went from smug confidence to panic in the span of a heartbeat. His phone, still recording for what he'd hoped would be Elena's downfall, captured his own professional execution instead. "Additionally," Elena continued, "Technova will conduct a full audit of our workplace culture with an independent firm specializing in harassment prevention. Any employee found to have participated in systematic bullying will face immediate termination and potential legal action." The live stream chat exploded. #CEO JanitorGate was rapidly being replaced by #Justice Served and #Workplace Accountability. The same investors who'd questioned Elena's judgment 20 minutes ago were now witnessing a masterclass in corporate leadership under pressure. Jennifer gathered her belongings with shaking hands, the weight of her professional misconduct finally registering. The HR complaints she dismissed weren't just paperwork. They were evidence of her failure to protect vulnerable employees. Board member Patricia Williams stood in the VIP section. "I move to commend CEO Chen for her handling of this situation and to proceed with the IPO as scheduled." The motion carried unanimously. But the most important reaction came from the front row, where Lily clapped silently, her face glowing with pride as she watched justice unfold in real time. Her mother hadn't just learned to communicate, she'd learned to fight for what was right. The live stream counter hit 23,000 viewers as the story transformed from scandal to inspiration. The bullies were fired, but the transformation was just beginning. The internet loves a comeback story, and this was perfect. Within hours, the narrative flipped completely. Social media posts that had mocked Marcus's presence at Romano's were being deleted or edited. The same platforms that had spread cruel hashtags now pushed #RespectJanitors and #LearnASL to trending status. Marcus's phone buzzed with interview requests from Good Morning America, 60 Minutes, and Ellen DeGeneres. His LinkedIn profile, dormant for months, suddenly showed hundreds of connection requests from disability advocacy organizations, interpretation services, and tech companies eager to demonstrate their commitment to inclusion. But the most meaningful validation came in smaller moments. A video of Lily's testimony was shared by the National Association of the Deaf with the caption, "This is what advocacy looks like." Deaf community leaders across the country reposted Marcus's story, highlighting the importance of professional ASL interpreters in corporate settings. Elena's phone showed a different kind of notification, a text from Goldman Sachs confirming the IPO would proceed as planned. Investor confidence had actually increased after witnessing her crisis leadership. Stock analysts were calling it the most authentic corporate response to social media harassment in recent memory. The restaurant video, once evidence of humiliation, became a teaching tool. Business schools requested permission to use the footage in courses about ethical leadership and workplace inclusion. The transformation was so complete that Romanos reported a 300% increase in reservation requests from families with deaf children. Marcus stood at his apartment window that evening, watching his son practice signs in the living room below. Tomorrow, he would start his new position as Technova's Director of Accessibility Services. Tonight, he was still processing the whirlwind of vindication and opportunity. His son looked up from his homework, another school project about families. This time, the essay read, "My dad's hands tell stories, and now the whole world is listening." The internet loved a comeback story. This was perfect. 6 weeks later, Marcus stood in his new office on the 32nd floor. The nameplate read, Director of Accessibility Services, in both English and Braille. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, he could see the city spread below, the same view the executives had, but earned through a different kind of climb. His first official act was establishing the Technova Deaf and Hard of Hearing Inclusion Initiative, not a charity program or public relations gesture, but a comprehensive overhaul of how the company approached accessibility. Real budget allocation, $2.3 million annually. Real staff positions, 4 full-time ASL interpreters, 2 accessibility consultants, and a family support coordinator. Elena knocked on his office door, Lily's hand tucked securely in hers. Ready for the announcement? The press conference would make it official. Technova was partnering with Gallaudet University to create the first corporate-sponsored ASL immersion program for hearing families of deaf children. Marcus would oversee curriculum development while maintaining his interpreter certification through continuing education credits. But the real mission lived in smaller moments. The company childcare center now employed 2 deaf teachers who conducted storytime in ASL. The cafeteria installed visual paging systems for food orders. Conference rooms featured automatic captioning and sign language interpretation for all meetings. The numbers are remarkable, Elena said, reviewing his quarterly report. Employee satisfaction up 18%. Recruitment applications from disabled candidates increased by 400%. And our accessibility consulting contracts are already generating revenue. Marcus smiled, watching Lily practice her presentation for the elementary school visit they'd planned. She would teach second graders basic signs while he explained why communication accessibility mattered in every environment. "It's not about the numbers," he said. "It's about making sure no child feels invisible." His desk held 2 framed photos, his son's latest artwork showing stick figures with magic hands, and a candid shot from that first night at Romano's, Lily's face lighting up with recognition as Marcus signed his first response to her desperate attempt at communication. The janitor became the coordinator. The healing became a movement. The company Christmas party felt different this year. Marcus watched from the refreshment table as Lily taught basic signs to a cluster of fascinated children, their small hands fumbling through hello and friend and more cookies, please. Her confidence had transformed completely. No longer the isolated child hiding behind her mother's skirt, but a natural teacher sharing her language with anyone willing to learn. Elena approached, carrying 2 cups of coffee and wearing a smile that had become genuine over the past months. Dr. Martinez says Lily's emotional regulation scores are off the charts. She's not just communicating, she's thriving. The speech therapy appointments were still canceled, but for different reasons now. Lily no longer needed remedial communication support. She needed advanced language enrichment to keep up with her accelerated development. Marcus's son joined the group of children learning signs, his hearing aids glinting under the party lights as he helped translate between spoken English and ASL. The boy who'd once asked why his father cleaned toilets now proudly introduced himself as the son of the guy who makes workplaces fair for everyone. The ripple effects continued expanding. 3 other Fortune 500 companies had contacted Marcus about implementing similar accessibility programs. Harvard Business School invited him to guest lecture about inclusive leadership. The viral video from Romano's was now featured in corporate training modules about unconscious bias and workplace harassment. But the most meaningful change was barely visible. The way people moved through Technova's offices now. Conversations happened at eye level. Meetings included visual and auditory accommodation without anyone having to ask. The company culture had shifted from tolerance to genuine inclusion. Elena's IPO had been wildly successful, raising $1.2 billion and establishing Technova as the accessibility leader in the tech sector. But her proudest achievement sat at the children's table, teaching sign language to anyone willing to learn. Lily looked up from her impromptu lesson and signed to Marcus across the room. "Thank you for teaching Mama to see me." He signed back, "Thank you for teaching the world to listen." 6 months later, the company was different. The family was whole.